Okay, so this is similar to last lesson, but now as you can see we have a negative x squared value, and I had touched on this a little bit in the last video, but when we are making our multiples or finding our multiples of our x squared value, when it was positive we had all positive multiples, and then we had all negative multiples. But when we have a negative x squared, this our multiples, one has to be positive and one has to be negative. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. This is what we're adding to get, and this is what we're multiplying to get. So our product and our sum. Let's go ahead and list our multiples of negative 6x squared. So we have negative 1x and 6x, right? And this is what I mean by one has to be positive and one has to be negative. Because if they're both positive, we get a positive. If they're both negative, we get a positive. And right now we have a negative 6x squared, so one or the other. So now we can do 1x and then minus 6x. So you do have to use both of them because this, when we add it together, is going to give us a positive 5x, and this is, when added, is going to give us a negative 5x. So that's why you do have to list both. They're not giving you the same sum. So let's go ahead and list the rest of them. Negative 2x, 3x, 2x, negative 3x. So those are our multiples. Now, which one of those is going to add together to give us our negative x, or our sum? Well, it's going to be this one, right? Because when you add 2x plus a negative 3x, you get a negative x. So let's go ahead and write it in our kind of diamond that we have before. We have negative 6x squared, negative x, product and sum, and our two multiples that we found, which is 2x and negative 3x. Okay, so that's it for that example. Let's look at one more, pretty similar. What we're actually going to do is use, it's going to look very similar. It's going to be negative 6x squared, and now it's going to be a positive x. So same thing, we can go ahead and list all of the multiples, but again, this is the same as above, so we're just going to have the same multiples. Right, so we have the same multiples below as we do above, but which one is going to add to give us x? It's going to be that one, right? Negative 2x plus 3x is going to give us a positive x. So let's write our diamond again, our product and sum, and we have a negative 2x and a 3x. And that is how we're going to do those. We're going to look at one more though before we move on. And it's still going to include negatives, but it's going to look a little bit different. And there's kind of a trick to this one that I can help you guys with. So we have a positive 10x squared and a negative 7x. So far we've worked with a positive product and a positive sum, a negative product and a negative sum, and a negative product and a positive sum. So we haven't worked with this one yet, where it's a positive product and a negative sum. So we'll go through this and then I'll go ahead and tell you the trick. So right now let's list the multiples of 10x squared. We have 1x, 10x, negative 1x, negative 10x, 2x, 5x, negative 2x, negative 5x. All right, so those are our multiples. Now let's figure out which one of those will add to get us our sum of a negative 7x. take a minute to see which one it is. And this is going to be our answer, right? Because when you multiply, you get a positive. When you add, it becomes our negative 7x. So let's go ahead and write it in our diamond. We have 10x squared negative 7x as our product and sum. And our two multiples that we found are negative 2x and negative 5x. Right, so there's our answer. But the trick that I want you guys to pay attention to, or that might be helpful, that way you don't have to list a whole ton of multiples, because sometimes that can get annoying. But anytime you're in this situation, so you have a positive product, so we have 10x squared, and you have a negative sum, which in this case is negative 7x, your multiples that are going to work are always going to be negative. So this one won't work and this one won't work. So it's going to be one of these. And the reason for that is because when we multiply negatives, they'll give you your positive product. But when you add two negatives, you're going to stay in the negatives. Does that make sense? So if you had our positive, so we had our 2x and our 5x, when you multiply, yes, you still have a positive 10x squared, but when you add them, it becomes a positive 7x, right? When you add two negatives, you're going to stay in the negatives. So this only works when you have a positive product and a negative sum, right? Because when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. When you add two negatives, you get a negative. So just think of that next time you see this. Don't worry about listing these. Only list the negative multiples that you can come up with.